But all of the attention remains focused on the twice impeached ex-president, who's now been indicted and arrested 4 times in less than 5 months. And this criming extravaganza creates an unavoidable new harsh reality for Donald Trump, that he may soon finally face accountability, perhaps for the very first time in his life. Joining me now is Anna Bower, legal fellow and Fulton County correspondent at Lawfare. Anna, you and I have been logging some hours together in Fulton County at the courthouse and at the jail. I'm really focusing on what's happening on Monday. I have told people this is a very important hearing on Monday for Mark Meadows. But what happens on Monday may dictate what happens to the other co-defendants that attempt to remove their cases to federal court. So, Anna, walk us through what you expect to happen in front of federal court judge Steve Jones on Monday morning at 10 a.m.
Right. Good morning, Katie. Thanks for having me. You are right. We have been spending lots of time in Fulton County, Georgia at the courthouse, and we're moving courthouses on Monday to this evidentiary hearing for Mark Meadows as he seeks to remove his state criminal charges to federal court. What I expect there is to hear from witnesses that have been called. We've been watching the docket, and we can already see that the prosecution has called 4 witnesses: Kurt Hilbert, Alex Kaufman, Francis Watson. 2 of those folks are attorneys who were listening in on that famous Brad Raffensperger call. Francis Watson is a former chief investigator for the Georgia Secretary of State's office, who Trump called in December of 2020, and Mark Meadows allegedly set up that phone call. And then finally, the 4th witness that the prosecution has called is Brad Raffensperger himself, the subject of Trump's attempts to urge him to find votes in January of 2021, right before January 6th, that infamous phone call that set off Fani Willis's investigation. So I expect that we will hear these witnesses under oath testify. Fani Willis will try to elicit testimony from them. They will be subject to cross-examination by Mark Meadows' attorneys. And then the big question for me, Katie, is whether or not Meadows himself will testify. That is a possibility because, as you know, Katie, one of the elements that has to be proved here, if Mark Meadows wants to remove his case to federal court, is he has to raise a plausible argument that he believed that what he was doing was within the proper scope of his duties. So it's possible that he may himself have to get on the witness stand and testify as to what his subjective beliefs were. So it will be a remarkable scene if that does occur. Who knows? But I think that is what we expect on Monday in terms of this Mark Meadows removal hearing.
Which is kind of wild, Anna. If you think about it, you have a criminal defendant who does have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination that may have to take the stand because he decided to play cute and try to remove to federal court. So I look at the removal issue in 2 buckets, especially for our viewers to understand. You've got Mark Meadows and Jeff Clark. They were federal officials at the time, to the extent that they had jobs as White House Chief of Staff and Assistant AG, right? But then there's a second bucket that I want to talk about briefly with you before we move on, Anna, and that's the slate of fake electors, 3 of them that have been co-defendants right now in that Fulton County case. Those 3 Georgia fake electors, their theory to get to federal court is that they were also federal officials when they were, quote, contingent presidential electors. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I feel like their chances, as in those Georgia fake electors, their chances of removal at federal court are actually slim to none.
I agree with you on that, Katie. I will say, though, I think it's really interesting because their argument is that, they were federal officials. Kathy Latham, in particular, has made the argument that she was under the direction of Trump attorneys and the Trump team. And so that is really interesting to me because, as you know, with RICO prosecutions, one of the things that you have to show is that this group group of individuals who were associated with each other had this common plan, common purpose. And so I think actually by these fake electors or alternate electors making this argument that they were under the direction of the Trump team, in some ways that kind of helps Fani Willis because they are saying, you know, we were being directed by Trump's team. But I agree with you that I think that their chances of removal are very slim. However, as you pointed out, it's possible that this whole case could be removed to federal court if even one of these folks is successful. So if Mark Meadows is successful, if Jeff Clark is successful, it could bring everybody with them. So, you know, it's very consequential, as you said, what happens on Monday and with this Meadows hearing.
Yeah, and, you know, I want to also manage some expectations. So this removal thing, this process, this analysis is actually it's multi-pronged, but the first kind of way to get in the door, and that's what I want to talk about with you. One way to get in the door is to show that you were a federal official. Now, the success in staying in federal court or the success in actually getting your case dismissed is a whole other part of the analysis. And so, Anna, I want to make sure that people understand that are tuning in and listening right now. Meadows may successfully remove the case to federal court, but that does not mean that his defenses are necessarily successful when he's in federal court. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I think that it's really difficult to separate those two things out. But what judges have said in the past when they've allowed removal is, I don't need to decide the question of immunity or your defenses right now. I can go ahead and just remove this case because what you've done is raise a plausible claim. You just kind of have to make the argument. And it's to be seen here to what extent Judge Jones will require Meadows to prove up some of these defenses that he's raised, like supremacy clause immunity. But in the past, we've seen in the Northern District of Georgia that it's a very low bar to raise this argument. And judges, you know, tend to be quite deferential to these ideas of federalism and the idea that, you know, a federal official should have his claims litigated in federal court. So it's really important for folks to understand that just because something is removed to federal court, that doesn't mean necessarily that, you know, Meadows' defenses that he's raised will be accepted by the federal judge later down the road. And I'm glad that we had this conversation, Anna, because I know that a lot of people may get worried if they hear that Meadows is successful to get to federal court, but, you know, alas, that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to prevail. Anna Bower, I'm glad to see those encyclopedias behind you. I grew up loving my encyclopedias. And will I see you on Monday in court? I will see you there. We'll be there together. Anna Bower, Lawfare, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.